You're getting a different employee that day, all because you didn't allow some robot to dictate their life. You know what? You do that. And when you keep losing employees, I don't want to hear you complain because you're part of the problem. Yeah, those like 7 open positions you have that I don't have, because I have people walk into my store and be like, can I work here? You're going to have to try another store. No one needs mine. It is the leader's job. It is our job to facilitate compassion and grace and camaraderie amongst our teams. And an app cannot do that.
What makes a job engaging? What gets overlooked? And what do store managers need VPs to fix that they cannot? Let's talk about operations.
Mhm.
So what systems or corporate policies or practices are getting in the way of day-to-day, like the operations themselves being amenable to engagement? So like even just to scratch the surface, what I see a lot, and again, this isn't intentional, this isn't malicious at all, but engagement is a very important KPI on the corporate level.
Mhm.
They talk about it a lot, they measure it, they break it down, they pump things out, but I wouldn't say it's resourced like other KPIs.
Mhm.
Programs are very often launched and not operationalized.
Mhm.
So, what can corporate do to fix this that store managers can't? What are some examples of operations that you feel hurt your ability to engage your team?
Oh my goodness.
I can kick you off.
Yeah, you might have to.
So, the first thing that comes to mind for me, because from talking to you, is scheduling or staffing models.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You got it.
It's like my brain was just like, and now you've forgotten everything you've ever known. Yeah, I actually think that's one of the most like important. And we've obviously talked about a lot that you can answer for me now. Coming to you soon, Becky hosting the podcast by herself, playing roles. So I think over managing the schedule is what they're doing a lot of times, and over dictating when, where, how it needs to be done, what it should look like. And of course, using the tool that they spent millions of dollars to build the schedule. And I think, and to your point, like there's a great reason why they were doing this, right? Like we had a scheduling program, it worked relatively well. I mean, you can put input data into that thing that you wouldn't believe. I mean, you can practically put in there like Susie Q loves to, take a 15 at 2 p.m. Like you can almost tell it everything, but you can't make it human. It's still, technology, and they hold us really strictly accountable to like how we use it essentially, and that you should only be editing the schedule. I think it was like 15%. And that sounds reasonable and that makes sense. However, it didn't always leave room for the human element. And the schedule is like the most important engagement tool, in my opinion. It's like number one. If you haven't engaged them there, then you're not going to engage them anywhere. And I think there's so many people in retail that I've hired over the last 15 years. It'll either be in the interview when I ask them why they're leaving, or they'll be more candid when they start. And they're like, yeah, my last retail job, like, it just kept scheduling me when I was like in class. And every time I think they lost you over the schedule, like, could never be me. I'm going to figure out a way to make it work. I'm going to treat it like it's a math equation, and I'm going to move all the little parts. And the thing is, the GM, when I was there, I think they've since restructured, but the GM did not do the schedule at Old Navy. It was my business and operations manager, the BOM, business and operations manager. Shout out to Pam, who was amazing in that role, because Pam understood what I understood, which is like making people happy through the schedule basically makes everything else possible. Because it's not just that it makes them engaged and happy and want to stay at work. It's also that it buys you a certain amount of like political capital to get better performance out of people. And I don't mean like holding it like leverage, like I'll give you Saturday off if you get more Old Navy cards, but it's more just like this implicit understanding that most people have that like, we've given you everything that you need to live a happy life outside of work. And now I need just 2 little things from you at work. if you could just ask for Old Navy cards more to register, and also like your hanger situation back there is like kind of a hot mess. That conversation's so much easier because they're not already bitter inside about like their schedule and all the ways that you've made their personal life hell. But I think what I'm really trying to say is if your employee is already walking through your door in the morning, the schedule was published in the app the night before, and they're already walking in the door like, well, I guess he couldn't give me Thursday off, even though I know there's like a way he probably could have.
Mhm.
You're already behind. They're not here today. They're thinking about how their friend has a birthday party on Thursday, and now they have a 6-hour shift. They're spending the first 3 hours hoping one of their peers will take it, or just bitterly standing at the register because maybe they can't talk to their peers because they're like stuck at the register. Every customer interaction they're having right now is not their full whole self. And now service is bad. That to me is what engagement looks like versus that schedule gets published. That person walks in and they're like, oh my God, not only did he give it to me what I wanted, he knows I'm going to get wasted. And he scheduled me later to come in on Friday. The team notices those things, feels seen, heard, appreciated. And that person's walking in the door. And I'm telling you right now, every customer at that register, they're getting a, hey, how are you? Oh my God, I love these jeans. Did you see the other shirt that like we have in this style? Like you're getting a different employee that day, all because you didn't allow some robot to dictate their life.
Yes. What we're talking about here is the day to day,
Mm-hmm.
not the onboarding, not the special events, not the once a year recognition or something like that. This is just my life.
Mm-hmm.
This is my work life when I come to work.
And I think for me, one of the ways that I like to think about engagement is kind of the example I just used, but to like be a little bit more specific about it. How do I get every employee to only be thinking about what they have to do on the floor right now?
Mhm.
And one of the ways I can do that is to make sure there's nothing here that is stressing them out or making them distracted or pissed at me or pissed at the company or hating anyone here. So, how do I eliminate those? And even in their personal life, I don't believe in having employees leave it at the door because I hate that phrase. I think it should be banned from everyone's lexicon. So, it's like if they're stressed about something outside of work, how do I find some time to like have a conversation, allow them to vent? I don't care what it's about, school, boyfriend, family, whatever.
Mhm.
Vent, get it out, take a break, buy them a coffee, buy them a sweet treat because I know it's going to make them happy. Whatever I got to do to get them back on the floor and fully engaged and aware of what's happening. And if you do that, like, again, all the other stuff just like kind of happens.
I want to I want to devil's advocate a little bit here
Mm-hmm.
because we might have some listeners thinking like that sounds great. Yeah, just let the employees come in whenever they want, Matt. Like don't want to come in? Cool, just let me know, I'll cover, right? Like where is the line here? Like or are there times where you can't accommodate a schedule request?
Much less than most people listening want to admit to.
Mhm.
Because what a lot of managers are doing is they're like, well, that's inconvenient for me to figure out. So no. And that's fine. You know what? You do that. And when you keep losing employees, I don't want to hear you complain because you're part of the problem. Because I've had peers in the past who, and I gave this story already on the pod, so I won't repeat myself, but like peers who've basically been like, what do you mean you figured it out for them or accommodated them? And I'm like, yeah, those like 7 open positions you have that I don't have, because I have people walk into my store and be like, can I work here? And I'm like, no, no one ever leaves. Sorry. It's my favorite thing to say, by the way. When people come in and they're like, I'm like, you're gonna have to try another store. No one leaves mine. And I'm not saying that to brag. It's just there are not many times, but I will say that like creating that relationship where your employee where they understand that there are times that you'll have to say no. And when you say no or say it's not possible, they get it.
Mhm.
And here's the thing. I have had maybe 2 times that employees have not gotten it because they're not like fully invested in what I'm trying to create as an environment. And eventually, like, I just have to manage those people out, just to be perfectly frank.
Yeah.
So that to me is the line. The line isn't that I make all my other employees have to suffer because I got one, joker over here who is always asking for things and like seeing where the line is and testing the boundary.
Mhm.
No, I just deal with that one person in a one off and I'm like, listen, you can have it. And then they call out and then I write them up. Like that's kind of the cadence of that. But that doesn't happen very often. Most
Right.
other people are like, wow, I've asked for 3 Saturdays off this month and Matt figured out how to get me 2. And on the third Saturday I wanted off, he asked me, why do you want it off? And I said, I'm going to be hungover. And so he let me have a closing shift. And so there was still a way to figure it out. Cause I always ask employees, and like, this is like a taboo, but I ask anyway. I'm like, what are you doing? Not because I mean, if I can just give it to them off, I just give it to them off. I don't care what they're doing. But if I feel like there's something I can do, but it's not off, like, do you have a morning thing, a night thing, a midday thing? And I think having just that open, honest communication so that you can set the boundaries, but also give them as much as you possibly can, quite frankly.
Yeah, that doesn't live in isolation, right? Like you can do that because you've invested the time and gained trust from your teams so that they know that you're if you can, you will do it. And if you can't, they know that you understand that it's important to them and that you tried and that there is some give and take. I guess like what I'm saying is I think if there are people who are listening to this that say that sounds impossible, that sounds like chaos, my team calls out all the time. Everyone is unhappy with their schedule. I think those are symptoms of deeper issues.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that like me and Pam created at Old Navy, because again, you have 60 employees. So it's like, how do you make 60 people happy with the schedule? And I'm super proud to say that we did. And I mean, it wasn't me. It was definitely we. Like Pam owns a lot of this credit. She would basically be in the office for like 3 hours tearing her hair out sometimes. And sometimes going out onto the floor. This is why I am obsessed with Pam as a leader. And so sad because retail has lost her. She left retail probably never to return. And that's retail's loss. But because she would sometimes leave the office and then like there'd be like an employee she needed to like convince to do something. Maybe they never work Thursdays, but we
Mhm.
have 4 employees off who want Thursday off. She would go onto the floor in that moment and be like, listen, what are we going to do to get here on a Thursday so these other 4 people can all have it off? Because we just need one more person on that Thursday.
Mhm.
And that was to make everyone happy. So yeah, that took longer to do the schedule. But then when it's published, it's like, we have figured it out. It was possible. But the thing is that scheduling system can't know that that person who's unavailable Thursdays could be bribed, or could be just convinced that helping out their fellow coworkers was worth it because someday they're going to want a day off. And we can make that happen. And so there's this fallacy that exists right now that like all of these apps that now allow, most companies have them. They're like, it allows you to switch shifts. So but really what that is that's companies saying, so now you never have an excuse to call out because you can switch shifts. When really, I would actually argue it is the leader's job. It is our job to facilitate compassion and grace and camaraderie amongst our teams and sometimes help them see each other's humanity so they'll do each other a favor. And an app cannot do that. The app isn't going to message them sweet little nothings in the middle of the evening that's like, take Sarah's shift. It's for the betterment of the store. It would be creepy if it did. I actually creeped myself out. But like, but if you have Pam going out onto the floor and being like, listen, Sarah wants the day off and we know you guys get along and like you don't normally work Thursdays, but like let's make this happen. Like
Mhm.
that you're facilitating it.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing is like the apps are great. They're
Yeah.
helpful in a lot of ways. They're getting much more robust, but not 100% perfect. So, in terms of what corporate or VPs could do, what systems are handcuffing you as a store manager to be able to keep engaged teams, is remove any locks, any restraints, like you can't change it more than 15%, or we only want you to spend 1 hour
Mm-hmm.
a week on adjusting these things. I think that's a really good example of what corporate could do to improve engagement on an operational level, things that you as a store manager can't. I mean, you can disobey them, but you're not necessarily changing that policy. That's not something that you're empowered to do. If I can bring up one more example, I was actually thinking about this weekend as a customer because I have a cozy couch. There's a Canadian company that they're modular couches that get delivered to your home
Mm-hmm.
in boxes, and this is our second one, and I hate it. Like I was hating it so bad, and for honestly for so long I was like, this is such an uncomfortable couch. Like we're just gonna have to get a new couch, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm getting bombarded with advertisements for them. So I'm just going to reach out to them and just, I'm not expecting them to send me a new couch or a different couch or anything like that. But I'm kind of curious now. My retail brain is like, well, what would happen? So anyway, I emailed them, and long story short, they're sending me replacement seat cushions because they've been upgraded since I had ordered them. And it's been less than 5 years since I've had this couch. And I was really surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So it just made me think about like them standing by your product.
Mm-hmm.
What is the policy? What do they actually get to do about it? And I was very pleased as a customer, and I couldn't help but reach out to them and be like, I'm really happy with this, and it must be really nice to work for a company that stands by their product and lets you make customers happy.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, I wouldn't have been that surprised if they were just like, sorry, like, it's been a couple years. And anyway, to the idea of like a warranty or return policy is another one that I feel like is a powerful opportunity for
Mm-hmm.
corporate teams and VPs to promote engagement.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree with that because if you work somewhere where really, really overly strict and unchanging policy exists, that means as a cashier at like especially a bigger box store, people are standing at that register like they see the bag in the hand, like the online return bag, and immediately
Yeah.
they're like, is it going to be past the date? Is it those leggings that we know are bad that keep ripping on people? Am I going to have to have this fight again because I can't take it back? Like it just leads to that dread.
Yeah.
And then of course, again, if that interaction is bad because they can't do anything and they had to say no, and now they're in a place where they're in a mood, the 10 customers after them are not getting great service because they're still thinking about why did that woman just yell at me? I didn't make the policy, which is also where a good sales leader would go up and grab that employee and give them a 10-minute break, whether warranted or not, and allow them to recover. Just need to throw that out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so those the returns, like what you just described there, being the cashier, seeing someone with the bag already, with the online bag. This is what we mean by the day to day. These are the small moments.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that happen every single day, multiple times. Are they enjoyable? Are they neutral? Are they, do I dread them?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to really obviously tie that line between something like a policy and the day to day and how it impacts engagement. Okay, so finally, I think this will be a smaller component because we always talk about how communications and information hubs should really support the things that employees are experiencing day to day. They're not going to create engagement on their own. But I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't speak to them to some extent, because this is where I think a lot of corporate teams put like 90% of their efforts when trying to improve engagement.
Mm-hmm.
It's through videos, it's through posters, it's through more communications. So even though, we've said if the manager is, let's say, like 50% and operations is 40% in terms of contributing to the day to day, these comms things are more like 10% in the lives of employees. The corporate tends to spend like 90% of their time, efforts,
Mm-hmm.
money on these things. So overall, I would say less emphasis on this, more focus on making sure that your managers are equipped and your operations are aligned. But in terms of what corporate or VPs can do to make communications and information hubs better.
Yeah, I think this one is actually kind of easy in some ways. I think making sure your communications are really lived in the day to day, because if they are, they're just backing up what employees already know and experience. And then it's actually it's like a fun reminder that makes people happy. And I'll give you like it's not even a real example, but just to like kind of dumb it down in a way. If you have a poster in the break room that's like, I'm picturing like a generic graphic of like people shaking hands, and it's like, we care about our teams or something. That poster actually can ruin engagement or help it. And how it does that is if employees really feel like you care, because in the day to day, their manager is asking them, is having those check ins, is making them laugh, is keeping them focused on the sales floor by giving them the schedule they want. All of those pieces are in place. So they're like on the floor and they're like, yay, I love it here. I laugh. My schedule's great. They train me to do things right. I have some autonomy to do the things that I need to do with a customer interaction. They see that in the back and they're like, oh, we do. That's so great to work here. I love it here. But if you don't and that poster exists, it becomes a tool which employees share via Snapchat with a text overlay that's like lots of swears that I'm not going to repeat, with like, basically like these jokers and their BS they're spewing. Like it becomes the thing employees actually use to actually further harm your morale with other employees, especially new employees. And I'm thinking, now you're onboarding in the break room. I'm the manager. I'm onboarding. I have an employee on break over there. I get up because I have to go print something. And as I get up, the new employee who's onboarding, they're excited. They're like, oh my God, yay, I'm here. And they see the poster and they're like, oh my God, we care about people. The last job I was at, they didn't care about us at all. If I actually don't care about my employees and I'm not showing them day to day, that employee who's on break, like, wait till you're here for like 4 days, you're going to realize they don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Now flip that. I do care and they feel that. And that employee's like says that same thing. That person on break is like, yeah, it's really nice. And then I guarantee you they're giving an anecdotal story. This one time I had this really bad thing happen at home, and then Matt gave me these days off. And then when I came back, they had like pulled together stuff and got me lunch and flowers. Like, and now you're further reinforcing we do care about people. So to me, comms are important in either reinforcing what exists and sort of like making it warm and fuzzy, or it becomes the very tool to actually harm all your morale. Because employees, quite frankly, especially like younger employees with the technology, what am I, 100? They're funny and direct and harsh. So if they don't believe what's on those posters, the mock-ups of them are, I mean, I've seen some of them because I've had employees from other stores who work for other people show me pictures. And I laugh. I'm like, you're creative. Maybe you should be on the comms team. So I think they serve a really important purpose in emphasizing or detracting from your mission.
Yes, agreed 100%. There are 2 points that, speaking directly to what corporate can do to make this better. For one, implement any kind of feedback loop, even if it is anecdotal, even if it is one store. But honestly, I don't see that happening a lot. They don't get feedback on what stores actually think about the stuff that they're putting out there. So, and I mean, look, there are going to be issues with that too, because we've talked about the issue of psychological safety. What store manager and store employees would actually tell them the truth? Like, no, this is off. This is not hitting the mark. This is embarrassing.
Ask the like 22-year-old Gen Z employee. They're going to tell you.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, one of the things I love, hot take, about that generation, they don't care that you're the CEO. Like, they really don't. Your title, your money does not impress them. So just skip all of us millennials who were raised better and go to the source if you need to. But I think you're right in that they're not getting the feedback and they need it. But I also think it doesn't even have to be phrased as feedback. It doesn't even have to be, I think a way they could do it, even if they're not psychologically safe, is to be like, so here's the new poster we're putting in the back room. It says we care about people. I'm just going to keep it simple. Just ask the manager, are there ways that you feel we could care about people more, or that you could care about people more? And what would you need in order to do that? so that this poster is not a lie. And put a little bit on the manager, because then they're going to be like, oh, I can just talk more personally, and they might open up a little bit more than just bashing the company.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then the other part in terms of communications, we touched about this a little bit on the onboarding episode, both the quality of the production and then also the messaging, the actual copy of the content. We agreed last episode that, or in the onboarding episode, that messaging shouldn't feel like you're talking to children.
Mm-hmm.
But like sometimes corporate leaders, even well-intentioned, maybe under the misconception that they want to keep things simplified because you're busy or you're very diverse and people have different levels of reading comprehension or English as an understanding, right? Things like that. But they tend to get oversimplified to the point where it feels childish.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I'm actually going to use a really sort of real life and scary example in America. Every retailer has to do like active shooter training and have drills. And some of them almost like, I don't want to say make a mockery, but like it's like thrown together, and like the acting or whatever it is in the video is very, again, it's dumbed down. So it's like you watch it and you're like, that's not how anyone's going to respond in that really serious situation. And then there's Old Navy's video, which is, to be quite blunt, if they still use the same video, is actually kind of horrifying and makes you take it seriously. One, because there's some actual footage, not of people being shot, but of like a gunman from a mall, like sneaking into an entrance. Real footage from a real shooting. And
Yeah.
the way they portrayed it was like, sort of compelled you to take it seriously. Like the level of production, but also the messaging met the moment in terms of how seriously you should take those drills. And so you're sort of like, okay, wow, that was kind of heavy for a work thing.
Right.
But let's talk about what we do and how we do it, because that's really serious. Whereas there's other active shooter trainings that I've seen where people click through it and they're like, ugh, this is so stupid. Like, why do we have to do this everywhere I work? And you don't take it seriously. And a big piece of that is the thought, the production, the messaging that went into. And the example I used last episode, because I think it's also important, is like sexual harassment. Like, if you're going to treat everyone like we're stupid and we think sexual harassment is something from like a bad 1980s after school special, we're not going to, you don't take it seriously because you're like, this is a joke. Like you put this together because legally I have to watch this, but you don't care if my boss is sexually harassing me or if an employee is, like, you just don't take it seriously.
Yeah. And going back to this idea of saying you take it seriously, but not investing like you take it seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and drawing parallels to consumer facing content, right? Where multi millions of dollars are invested in creating sharp, slick, on point,
Mm-hmm.
relevant messaging. I think we need to close the gap between that and employee facing messages because right now, either if they have any budget for it, it's very small to create employee messaging, but usually I think a lot of large corporate retailers will try to keep it in-house. And so that's HR or the learning and development teams, usually using like Canva or some very similar program to create these like animated videos with AI voiceovers. And look, like it's still communications. Whether you are an employee in a store or a consumer scrolling your phone, those consumer facing things work because they've invested in knowing the audience and and captivating their interest and making it relevant to them.
And it's insulting to think that your customer base is like sort of intelligent and understanding,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden that same customer becomes an employee and now they're real dumb and
Yeah.
can't understand basic things. And I think, to your point, even though this isn't exactly what you're saying, but related,
Yeah.
if I see a commercial for a brand and it's like highly intelligent and understanding that people have a brain, and then I go work at that company and it's like, to your point, some like bad, like first gen Simpsons quality pop art moving robotically with an AI voiceover, it's like, okay, so you think the customers get things, but first of all, you're not even investing in my training. So that's like one layer of it. But then also, you think we're stupid. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And look, like, I think the argument would be, look, we don't have the budget for it. But I have been involved closely with projects, onboarding, L&D stuff, video creation projects of things getting made for stores where it is HR and learning and development in charge of making these things. I would argue that the amount of time and bureaucracy and rounds of revisions that go into something like the amount of stakeholder time involved in something like that far exceeds what you could pay a reasonable agency who is making compelling content is their jam.
Mm-hmm.
And look, and no one's ever. This is like the crazy part about all of this is we look at, do we have the money to invest or should we do this internally? And it's almost impossible to just follow the thread all the way through. And how does this impact our retention?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just all the stuff. None of it exists in a vacuum. And I wish we would stop treating it like it did. So, in summary, in terms of what corporate could do in their comms, just understand that your managers in the operations are going to play a bigger role in the day to day, and that if your comms don't support what's already happening in the day to day through your managers or operations, they're going to be made fun of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're going to do more harm than good. Okay, lots of ground covered. I think the overall message here is that engage, especially if you're someone who dabbles in employee experience design and it's tucked in there right in the middle of all, again, weighted equally to all these other stages. Just keep in mind that engage isn't a step. It's a state. It's where people live their work lives. And just because it is not contained or feels obvious, that often means it's overlooked. So it doesn't mean it's not critical. In fact, I would argue it is the most important part of the employee engagement cycle. Any final thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I think if you're a corporate team member or on some sort of engagement team, just looking at your business, whether it be the operations, the manuals, the procedures, and just think, where are the employees in here? And to put it in a sillier way, but like looking across all of these things like service and sales leader, checklists, and operations and how we make the schedule. Do we have Boring Tuesday covered somewhere here? Because there's a lot of Boring Tuesdays. And if it's not in there somewhere, it's not going to say Boring Tuesday, but if it's not in there somewhere, you probably don't have engagement covered the way you need to. And for whatever your business is, what does that look like and what does that mean? And any step towards putting Boring Tuesday in there is a step in the right direction from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that can be a new thing, like the purple sweater.
Yes.
Boring Tuesday. Hashtag. Love it. Okay. Thank you as always.
Thank you.
You're listening to Dear Corporate, Love Stores.